It's a podcast with a difference this week, thanks to the Youth Cup final, but we've not forgotten the weekend's first team dead rubber. We thought we'd pare it down to one guest, a guest who, because of his profile, you might think would never be a fit for Cream of Manchester. He's a young man who's very much in the ascendant when it comes to football coverage, and he's got a lot to say. Most of all, he's absolutely Forest daft. That's right, it's Mark Goldbridge. I'm joking, of course. It's Max Hayes. Max, just introduce yourself. You are a full-time broadcast journalist now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, first of all. Yeah, full-time broadcast journalist. A lot of news stuff at the minute, but still do my sports stuff and cover and talk about Forest most weeks, which, as you know, talking about United can be difficult at a time.
You will see Max sometimes on Sky Sports News, among others, but you know these parts really well from studying.
Yeah, absolutely. Oxford Uni, through and through. Lived in Manchester the past 4 years, live on the outskirts now, the city centre, but was there last year. I think first year at uni, I was about 10-15 minutes away from Old Trafford, so on the regular runs and commutes and walks would often past it. So, I guess you say I've got a soft spot for Manchester, which makes it always nice when Forest have been in the Premier League the last few years to play, City or United, because they're like home games for me. Saves the 2-hour odd trip to Nottingham on a Saturday.
Yeah, it's really handy for you, isn't it? How did your perceptions of Manchester and Manchester United change in the time you've been here?
I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because people seem to think that most people have this dislike towards both Manchester teams if you're not from Manchester, or you're not support one or the other, or if you're maybe just an avid football fan in the city centre and around Manchester. I mean, for me, I kind of always wanted to come to Manchester for probably the area and because it had two good football teams. So if I was ever going to go and do some sports journalism, there'd be two blooming good teams to cover and other teams as well on the outskirts, Stockports, Boltons, Wigans, there's teams like that are almost up and coming and we're always good to talk about. So, I mean, I guess my perception never really changed because I always thought it was nice to cover them both. It was nice to talk about them both. And they're two huge clubs. Just don't ask me for a favourite because I've probably not got one.
No, studying in Salford, a lot of people come from the area, students I find, and they have the preconception. You see them on the bus, the Manchester Met students who very much have fallen for this idea that there's no United fans around. And I imagine coming to Salford, if you did have any such preconceptions, you'd probably get a rude awakening.
Yeah, absolutely. You probably would, to be honest. I've probably been surprised, if I'm totally honest, how kind of each area is more red or blue, and obviously Salford is more red, and you kind of come across it. And when I had my part-time job when I was at uni and kind of studying, a lot of Salford people had come in, and the first couple of weeks I would often ask, "Oh, are you red or blue?" And they'd look at me gone out because the answer was always red.
How is it being a Forest fan now? Is it mainly relief after the last couple of weeks, or is it really tempered with a big frustration or sadness about going out in that semi-final in Europe?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the league was always the priority. You will meet some Forest fans that go and have taken relegation if it meant winning a European final and cup for the first time in however long. But for me, it was always the league that was full focus. The feeling of relief, definitely after the results with Arsenal and West Ham and the point against Newcastle, which has mathematically now secured survival. I mean, it was an awful season, really, which might surprise people because they'd go, well, you got to the semi-final of a Europa League. But if you look at the inconsistency just on and off the pitch with 4 managers, more turmoil, criticism that the clubs face, players not really wanting to be here. But there was that element of surprise that I think for the footballing world that we actually did quite well. And with a 4th manager got to the semi-final. I mean, Forest Villa should have been the final of the competition. Best of luck to Villa because we were beaten and outclassed in that second leg. First leg played very well. Second leg went to Villa Park, and whether just kind of struggle with the atmosphere and noise or just the occasion itself, but the players certainly didn't turn up, and we've had injuries the past few weeks. So definitely a feeling of relief, but I think we'll all be glad to put this season to bed and be glad to be in the away end at United with absolutely nothing to play for.
You can just enjoy the day out. I want to know, I mean, it applies to Villa as well to a degree, but a really different fan base, I think. When I was really little, and I'm too young to remember it, both Villa and Forest were really successful in Europe, and you're definitely too young to remember it. To what extent, as a younger Forest fan, does that idea of European glory take hold of you?
I think it does. And I think it's become a reality in the past couple of years. I mean, when you think about that, Forest only got promoted in, what was it now, 2022, so 3 years ago, maybe 4 actually it is now. It's crazy to think that the club rose from fighting relegation to then almost challenging for the Champions League last season, just missing out on the last few games this time last year, and then getting Europa League through the debacle with Palace and all the Conference League malarkey and off the pitch stuff there. You forget that happened last summer. So yeah, I think the European glory is a thing amongst young people that we all want and we all dream about. But I think we're also very fortunate, and a lot of Forest fans have become a little bit complacent recently. We've got to realise, got to take a step back and go, look, we're here, we're playing Premier League football for the first time in 23 years when we got promoted in 2022. So it's just an amazing thing that we almost have to be grateful for, because you look at the likes of West Ham, Spurs, that one of those is going to go down with the final few weeks. They're supposed to be two big clubs. Well, they're going to get relegated to the Championship, and Forest have avoided that for the past couple of seasons, which is an achievement in itself.
Cool. Couple of questions to rattle through from the Cream of Manchester Ideas board. First up, are you a scab?
No. Because I wasn't even born, and I still struggle to understand the whole situation when someone calls at me when I'm walking through the streets with a Forest shirt on, and I'm like, hang on a minute, I'm 21. What does it mean?
The guy, I think it was last season, the Forest won. Was it 3-2 or 4-2 at Old Trafford? It was either Ruben Amorim's early stages.
3-2.
Yeah, and
3-2.
Very frustrating day, horrible windy day, and the guy, a guy very close to me, but just spent the entire game shouting "scab." It's obviously a big thing to most people. Whether it's fair to ask a 21-year-old that, I'm not sure. Are you aware of Forest history, or to what extent are you aware of Forest history as a feeder club to Manchester United?
I mean, I've heard little bits about it from my dad and granddad and other people, but again, probably not too much,
Ian Storey-Moore,
yeah.
which kind of went wrong, but apparently was a very good player. Never saw him play. I'm much too young for that.
Roy Keane?
Well, Keane's the one that was the most successful. We had Birtles, who was the opposite end of the scale, and Webb in between, who was kind of denied a great United career by a cruel injury, and then denied himself a sort of hero status by his behaviour in one particular game. So yeah, there's been a few, but I think was Keane the last one. I can't think of any since. And you've had a few from United, David Johnson and others. I don't know who, but the one that's in the press now, linked with United, but we think he prefers City, is Elliot Anderson. What do you know about it?
Well, in fact, talking to people the past couple of weeks, I think most Forest fans and as well people inside the club expect that he will go this summer. There is that feeling of, expectation that I think when he puts on the Forest shirt for the final game against Bournemouth, he will leave the City ground, probably not returning. Of course, never say never with Forest, given what happened with Morgan Gibbs-White last summer, and Marinakis holding him hostage. But in all seriousness, that just goes to show the ambition of an owner and of a club like Forest trying to compete almost against the big boys. So never say never. I do think Anderson will leave. If I'm honest, I think he'll go to City, but who knows? I mean, he's one hell of a player, and everyone will see that in the World Cup this summer, because he can just turn games on their heads, and ultimately Forest have built their team around him, and without Elliot Anderson, we'd be relegated this season.
He must, Newcastle must be kicking themselves, really. I don't know, or maybe he just didn't want to play for a murderous regime, and he wanted to play for a man like Marinakis, who you mentioned, who's definitely murdered a few Messi platters in his time, hasn't he? What is it like, sort of being a Forest fan when you've got a guaranteed definite lunatic in charge? And are you too young to know who Mr. Creosote was?
I mean, talking about him being a lunatic, it's funny, isn't it? Because everyone else thinks Marinakis is a lunatic, but he's kind of our lunatic, because we were a club that were spent years fighting relegation in the Championship and being a mediocre side with a big history. And everyone said, yeah, sleeping giant, Forest, big club in the Championship. But we wanted to get out there. We wanted to get up and play European football one day. That was always the dream. And people laughed at Marinakis when we got promoted, and he said, within 5 years, Forest will be in a European competition. It only took 3. That kind of shows the level of him. And I know he doesn't do things by the book. I know he's an interesting character. We all know that. But I wouldn't change him. I really wouldn't.
And at times you do look really good despite a difficult season. So are you confident finally going into this, or does it just not matter because you can just have a day out?
Do you know what? I'm looking forward to make the 15-minute odd tram journey into the Keys, Media City way, have a beer, see a few United mates, just enjoy it. Both of us have got nothing to play for. Yes, momentum counts. Will Forest win? I don't think so. I think you will. We've got a few injuries. We're quite leggy. I think a lot of the young lads will be playing and featuring. So it's just a feeling of job's done. Another season in the Premier League. Let's enjoy the last 2 games.
Max, thanks a lot. And I might see you pre-match.
Yeah, cheers, Andrew. We'll have to catch up for a pint.